Hey, aloha friends, Dylan Olaka here with the My Big Island video blog, and wanted to bring you an update on the lava situation. Got a lot of good feedback last time on the information that was provided there, so wanted to do a little bit of an update, and then got a lot of questions on the history and how we got to where we are today and how people ended up living right near active lava flows. So I did some research and I'm going to provide some information about that to give you a little bit of background and history on how we got to where we're at and provide you some information there too. So first thing, the lava continues to flow. There's like 18 fissures now. So the fissures keep opening up as it goes closer to the ocean, and one of the concerns right now is that it is getting very close to Puna Geothermal Venture, which is a geothermal plant, the only one on the island, but produces like 30% of the power for the island. And if that gets stopped or destroyed, it could have some significant impacts on the island here. So they're monitoring that closely. They've evacuated and moved a bunch of the hazardous material that was there and things like that. So that's one of the latest updates that's coming out of there. But this is what the map looks like. This is where it started up here, and it's running down through Leilani Estates, and then these are the latest fissures down here at the bottom, and this is where Puna Geothermal Venture is right here. So very close. Some of these fissures are very close to the geothermal plant, and then you can see where the flows are actually taking place. The largest ones are down here, which is downhill from the geothermal plant, which is the good news. But the lava continues to flow. The other piece of information that's been coming out recently is the potential for Halemaumau crater to have explosive event when the lava gets so far down that it mixes with the groundwater and has like a steam explosion. And there's been a lot of sensationalizing. This is a headline I pulled off of CNN, but Hawaii residents near volcano deal with falling ash, toxic gas, fears of the big one. The reality is we're not running around with helmets on or anything like that. My kids actually went up to volcano this weekend to spend the weekend with their grandma who has a house up there. So we're not living in fear of some humongous explosion. It's happened in the past. It was documented in 1924, and this is a good map that shows what the actual impact would be if there was an explosion like that, and what the radius would be and how far things would fly. Ash would obviously go further, but in terms of big rocks and things like that, I mean, they're talking about car-sized boulders flying. The radius is pretty small, and this is inside of the national park, which is already closed. The closest residences are in Volcano Village, where my kids were this weekend, but as you can see, very far away. This is a mile right here, so I mean, we're talking a couple of miles outside of where the crater actually is. Not a huge, it's not going to blow up and spray boulders all across the whole island. It's a very localized, would be a very localized event. So we're not living in fear of that either. It would be a pretty amazing event if it did happen. There was a little bit of that this morning already. The bigger issue is that it's spewing ash into the air, which could flow down to the southern part of the island depending on which way the wind is blowing. But there's been a lot of sensationalizing in the news about this, and this is the reality of the impact that would take place. So a little bit of history, that's the update, a little bit of history about how we got here. So in the early 1960s, and actually 1958 is when this all started, and there was a hui, or a group. Hui is Hawaiian in group, for group of businessmen, politicians, powerful guys that usually do land development in Hawaii, who got together and started to subdivide large tracts of land to sell off for investment. And you can see this sweet flyer from the Honolulu Star Bulletin in 1969 selling off Leilani Estates. You get an acre for $100 down, and it talks about how there's going to be resort developments and how it's going to be such a great place that they're going to have all this new development and commerce at, and they were selling these lots off in Leilani Estates for very cheap. But going further back before that, in 1958 was the first really large rezoning and redevelopment of this land near the volcano, and that was 12,000 acres. It was subdivided into about 4,000 different lots in Hawaiian acres. And then moving along in 1961, Royal Gardens, which is one that has already been overrun by lava, was subdivided. 1,800 acres was purchased from Bishop Estate, which is now Kamehameha Schools, one of the largest landowners in the state, for $200,000. So very, very cheap. And then they subdivided that off. And then by the mid-1970s, there had been over 80,000 lots across the island, not just in the Puna area, but across the island that have been subdivided for sale in these, what we call now substandard subdivisions, where you don't have municipal water. Sometimes the roads are not all paved. It was before those standards took place. And so there was a lot of development across the island by folks that saw an opportunity to sell this land off to people, not just here locally, but from the mainland. It looks like a great deal if you can buy, an acre of land for $1,000 or something like that. It seemed like a great deal at the time, and a lot of people bought into that, not looking at the potential danger of the volcano and the potential for lava in the future. And so by the 1990s, Kalapana, which is down here below Leilani Estates, had been destroyed by lava, and it was definitely at the forefront of people's minds that this was a possibility. And so obviously one of the concerns was insurance. People could no longer get insurance in these areas, and so the state in 1991 created the Hawaii Property Insurance Association, and it basically mandated insurers to provide insurance in lava zone 1 and 2 to homeowners who couldn't get insurance on the open market. And so this was one way that the state got involved, and in an effort to help, or as people who own land there thought they were being helped, actually encouraged more purchasing and building on these lots that in the free open market insurers would not insure. So the state had to get involved and mandate that the insurance be offered in these high-risk lava zone areas. And then in 2014, as the flows continued and got closer to Puna, there was a moratorium, and the association stopped issuing insurance because it was just too high of a risk. Obviously, anybody who understands insurance, there has to be risk evaluated before they're going to issue insurance. And if it gets too high, they're not going to issue insurance because the likelihood of them having to pay claims would get too high. So they stopped issuing new claims in 2014. And of course, the residents there were upset. Many people asked the state to help, and so the state got involved once again, and in 2015 passed Act 32, which was lifted the moratorium and then remandated that the insurance association continue to issue insurance. So even as lava was creeping up on to these communities and the likelihood of flows became higher and really right in front of them, the state again mandated that insurance be issued, which continued to allow people to purchase and build in these areas. And then we get to today where the lava is right inside of a subdivision. So it's a tragic situation, but it's a lesson learned. We don't know what the next step is going to be, how the insurance situation is going to shake out, but when the government gets involved and you think they're helping, or sometimes when you ask for the government's help, you have to be wary of what you get, because now we have a situation where not only do we have thousands and thousands and thousands of acres that people privately own, that people have built on in areas that are subject to high-risk lava zones, they were encouraged further by being provided insurance by the state, forcing insurance companies to provide them with insurance to build on it. And now going forward, the market is probably going to speak for itself in those localized areas. It's going to be very hard for those people to ever sell those properties if they're sellable at all. And there's going to be further impacts to those folks' personal lives and the economy in that area. So overall, I've been asked a lot about the potential impact on the real estate market here, and I can tell you that the really sad thing is that just the economy in general, there's talk right now of 30% decrease in commerce right now. People stop their replanning, canceling their plans to come, or canceling plans to do tours and different things. And so a lot of companies are feeling a pretty strong impact due to all of this. The reality is that for 95% of the island, everything is pretty much normal. The flights in and out of Kona and Hilo are not affected at all. So it's early to say what the impact on the market is going to be island-wide. Definitely there's a big impact out in the Puna area, but there is that uncertainty and that fear that has been caused by all of this. And again, for those of us who lived here, we've been dealing with this since 1983, so it's not something new. But definitely with social media, that's one of the new things here, is that with social media and the 24-hour news cycle, there's a lot more attention than there used to be. and it's definitely having an impact on business and commerce in general. So we'll see. We're not sure what the future holds, but I'll keep you guys updated. Thanks again for listening. Let me know in the comments if you guys got any other questions. Subscribe to the channel. I'll continue to put these updates out along with other updates. And as always, mahalo for watching. Aloha.